Welcome to the Power 365 show. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/316. But before we chat with today's guest, here's a quick message from our sponsors. Well, today's show is brought to you by me. If you're feeling stuck in your current role and it's time to look at your career and your future options, maybe you want to have a chat and have some coaching. I'm looking to take on a few more clients that want career coaching. So if you're interested, express your interest today at nz365guy.com/coaching. Now with that, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Seattle in the US of A. She works for Microsoft as a global Power Apps product marketing manager. Welcome to the show, Bryony Wolf.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, your voice doesn't sound like American. What's up with that?
Because I'm not American. I'm actually South African. And then I have a twinge of the UK since I spent about 9 years there. So, yeah.
Wow. You know, I met you in the UK originally, so I was asking a leading question. But of course, I didn't realize that you come from SA.
Yeah, no, I remember the first time I met you. Yeah. I think it was at a community event.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Pub in London somewhere after I'd been, I think, at the Reactor for the day doing a hackathon or something.
I think the first thing you told me was that I needed to change my LinkedIn picture.
Full of advice, I am. Full of advice.
I appreciated it.
Oh, it was good. It was good. So you're obviously in the US now. How did you end up being there, as I say? Because when I last saw you, we were in London. You're living in London. Tell us a bit about that journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I must have joined Microsoft about 4 years ago after doing my MBA. And I was a lawyer before that. So I had sort of, even joining Microsoft, I didn't really have the biggest background in technology. And I started within Dynamics 365 doing a lot of, I think, like the partner enablement and sort of community. And then I think I wanted to kind of get up to speed on the tech. I remember thinking, I've got a lot to learn. Let me start on the foundations. And I didn't get very far, actually. I remember kind of learning about something called CDS for apps.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd only been at Microsoft a few months, and I went to my boss, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And he was like, I love the passion. He was like, but that's not a job yet. And I just got really lucky with timing, because then I think in a few months, CDS for apps became Power Apps. And I think the UK, I think he put up his hand to sort of test the Power Platform subsidiary product marketing role. And I'd already been an eager beaver, so I had got that job. And then after about, a year and a half, Corp needed someone to sort of take over the global sort of reins for doing the GTM for Power Apps. And I think I'd probably done it, one of the folks in the field that had done it for sort of the longest time in the UK. So they sort of asked me to come over, and I must have decided in about 10 seconds. I was okay, I'll come. And now it's been a year and a half.
Wow. So Microsoft relocated you from London across there, and you've obviously set out this whole pandemic remote from the UK. What about family?
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen my family in over a year now. I think I was in the US for about 4 or 5 months before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really lucky to kind of make a bit of a support system here, before we got locked down. But I cannot wait. I can't wait to go back to London to see my friends and family.
Nice. Is Virgin Atlantic still doing that flight straight into Seattle to London?
I have no idea. I mean, at the moment, I don't think you're allowed to travel in between without particular reasons.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, which I do not currently fulfill. So I have no idea, but I hope so soon.
Yeah. I've done that flight a few times when I was living in the UK. It's good that it can be done in one trip. But it's interesting. All right. For me, it's been a whole year with no travel whatsoever, which is just absolutely bizarre.
Yeah. Is there anywhere in particular you want to go?
I mean, I actually want to go to Greece.
Nice.
Greece is a place that I haven't spent any time in. Just before leaving London, because, I moved back to New Zealand, I actually had a chance to really spend some more time in Italy, and Italy is probably our favorite country in the world, I'd say. Tell me, how did you settle into Seattle? Like, did you get, in that 4 months, did you get around and see everything? Mount Rainier, the fish markets, all the go-to see places, get out on the water, that type of thing?
I have done a bunch of that stuff, yes. The one thing I haven't done yet, which I'm saving, is the Space Needle, which I have not done. But no, most of the outdoor things, been to the market. Yeah, I really like it so far. Like the outdoors, like all the parks. It's been good so far, despite everything.
Nice. So tell us about the role you're in now. What's it involve? What does a day in the life of Bryony look like? And what teams you're interacting with, that type of thing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I am sort of the core product marketing manager for Power App, sort of my official title. I also manage Dataverse with Teams, and Microsoft Power FX. So no day is the same. I do really love all the variety and the challenges that we have. I mean, I kind of think about the product marketing manager role here, centralized in Seattle. It's kind of like being a little bit of like a COO of your business. Mm-hmm. You're kind of like working across so many different channels, across sales, across like your global demand center, your enablement, like all of your content, your social strategies, our first party events. You're sort of moving a million little chess pieces around and sort of making sure that you're essentially doing the most to sort of grow the business kind of long term, like in the short and the long term, and just making sure that it's all kind of, meeting the needs of your customers and kind of doing what's right for them.
Yeah. So are you kind of the interface to some degree as well between messages landing that R&D product team, engineering, that type of thing, and building, and then the various Microsoft subsidiaries, which ultimately, of course, roll out to, partner ecosystems, end customer, that type of thing. Are you the glue between understanding what it is in the message landing, or is it more you just find the message and tell engineering what to build?
I would say more the glue in between. I think engineering already has like a really great sort of tap into customers, like through advisory boards, through the community, through champs groups. So I think that, from a roadmap perspective, they're super agile and iterative. I definitely think it's more sort of the glue, like making sure that we're messaging, positioning, like industry lens, like the way that we do it, the channels that we use. That's sort of, I think, where I come in.
Yeah. Do you have any beat on the scale of, this is a bit more than just Power Apps, but the Biz Apps, market size now? We saw an analyst report came out a few weeks ago with, I think, was it a 36% year-on-year growth? And we knew last year an analyst came out and talked about $3 billion business now to Microsoft. Mm-hmm. How's the growth going? And what's your view on it?
Absolutely. Do you mean the growth of Biz Apps all up or Power Platform?
Biz Apps, and then let's chunk it down to Power Platform, because I've noticed that also that's been a vertical climb, particularly through COVID, the adoption rate of the Power Platform.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think on both fronts, like it's really exciting. I think growth for business applications all up has been huge throughout the last year. I think the market continues to sort of grow, and I think Dynamics becomes, more and more like used by, the Fortune 500. Like it's just scaling really well. And the more and more I see kind of like the customer stories that come in for Dynamics 365 as well, I think that's also a huge sort of testament to like how that business is growing and the type of transformation it's enabling. Mm-hmm. And I think for Power Platform sort of specifically, I think similarly, I think our growth rates are, they're phenomenal. Like Power Apps is probably I think it is the fastest growing product within business applications from a usage and a revenue perspective. But I think if you look at a lot of the customer stories that we've published, like I'm obviously in marketing, so that's sort of an area that we see like in the type of customer stories and the evidence that like we are creating and the customers that we're talking to, like it's a lot about like the scale that we're seeing, the adoption that we're seeing within organizations. When we first started doing evidence like 2-3 years ago, like you'd have a really exciting use case, whereas now the stories that we're telling are just, it's like we have 9,000 apps and we have a community of like 900 like app builders and champs within the organization. Like it's just a completely different level of like scale, and it's more about less about solving one challenge. And a lot of the stories that we tell now, it's about kind of low code kind of being like this new revolution. Like it's the way that you solve problems at scale. And I think that's so clear from the customer stories that we're publishing, like T-Mobile, for example, is Coca-Cola is another one, like stories that we've just published that really can show that kind of end-to-end value and the scale of change that we're seeing.
So that's interesting in that, for years we've heard the story of build app, build an app. And then what I noticed is that probably in the last 3 to 6 months, this pivot where we're seeing the concept of platform coming into play a lot more in businesses. I was just talking to Alan from Slumberjay earlier today, and, he's saying we've currently got 9,000 apps and, 19,000 apps going on to 20,000, and it's become part of their core business, every part of it. And, I think of, Virgin Atlantic, where they really went for that entire, once again, a real platform story where they're building, moving workloads, business workloads over to the platform, bringing all the power of the individual components. And we're seeing more and more companies, if you like, take a platform view than just an app view. And what do you think is that tipping point? Why do businesses, that might start off with just a single app strategy, then really tip and really look at how many apps or how many old software or old items of software in the business can be retired and migrated to the Power Platform?
I think there's a couple of pieces that come into that. There's that kind of like mindset change within organizations that I think has taken a bit of time. Like if I think about the conversations we were having with customers 3 years ago and the conversations that we're having today, like addressing the concerns of shadow IT, for example, like I feel like we hear that a lot less now to some degree. So I think like we're saying exactly the same thing that you're saying, like that mindset of, solving one problem to sort of solving hundreds at scale. And I also think it's sort of a value element as well. Really, seeing the value that low code can drive, the value of, really, actually kind of gearing down to some degree and really being efficient across not just like one particular like SIS and devs, but across your entire like low, no, pro sort of audience, and really seeing that kind of come together. And I think you mentioned Alan from like Slumberjay, and like that's an amazing thing that they've done, haven't they? Like with their community and their sort of fusion and kind of like, development as a team sport that they've embraced. Like that element, I think, of fusion teams has also had an impact on the scale piece that then sort of follows through afterwards.
Yeah, it's exciting, and that is it's almost not just a decision from, let's say, the CIO, et cetera, to adopt a platform like this. What we're seeing is almost a culture shift within companies where those subject matter experts are really getting hands-on and building things with the technology, and it's exploding, as going back to Alan's example there, where they've got a whole community inside their business, that are excited and building apps, but, solving business problems with the Power Platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me, what's top of mind when it comes to Power Apps? What are you seeing on the horizon, or what's just landed? Builds happening recently. What's the big things for you?
I mean, I think I would say firstly, I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be in Power Apps. I'm a little bit biased, but I think like top of mind for me is, definitely we just talked about fusion teams. I think that is a big area of focus for us. I think, enterprise trust as well. Like we wouldn't be getting like the scale, we wouldn't be getting the buy-in, I think, from IT and from all of our devs if we didn't have that enterprise trust piece. I mean, that's really core to kind of the heart of Microsoft. I think some things that I'm particularly excited about because I'm working really closely on is, of course, this theme of kind of AI everywhere. Not just thinking about how we obviously enable our customers to leverage like AI through, the low code models of AI Builder, but also, there are really exciting things that we announced at Build with relation to, being able to now use AI within your app authoring and app development experiences. So this is really just another level of empowering our developers to accelerate, enabling our citizen developers to be able to, build more complex solutions more easily. So I think, leveraging GPT-3, leveraging like the Pros AI model, really as a part of that authoring experience, I'm incredibly excited about that. And what I think that's going to mean for us in the future. And then I think lastly is probably PowerFX. I mean, we announced that earlier this year. I think we couldn't be more thrilled about like how it's going. And at Build, announcing that it's coming into Dataverse calculated columns and into model-driven commanding, just having like the extension of that kind of like Excel formula bar experience and all the goodness that then comes with that, for the first time outside of Power Apps, really starting to see that vision come true. I think those things are incredibly exciting.
Incredible. Now, it's interesting. You mentioned GPT-3 there, which is Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3.
Yeah.
Which is, an AI tooling. And I see according to Wikipedia, September the 22nd, 2020, Microsoft exclusively acquired the commercial license, for that and to use it in applications. How does that happen, Microsoft, then trickle into your team? Was it the BizApp team that kind of led, let's go after this bit of technology because it's going to transform us? Or was it in the wider Microsoft and your team have uncovered the use case and, I've seen it, working, and it's a powerful story, right? And how quickly people can build out formulas and things like that, using natural language. How did that process come about?
I think to be completely honest, I'm not sure. I'm not that close to kind of the all up, the agreement and the exclusive license. Like we do partner with that team, but I'm not as close to it as I am on like the Power App side. I do know that, for example, like Power Apps within GPT-3, the announcement that we made at Build, like that is, I think what was incredibly exciting about it is that I think there's a lot of plans that we have obviously across Microsoft, but I think this GPT-3 as a part of ideas within Power Apps. It's the first time I think to some degree that we're really kind of making it commercially available. Like it's public preview already in June. So it's incredibly exciting in the sense of it's not just like, this concept of natural language to PowerFX code. It's like, it's real now. Like you can go and try it, you can get feedback on it, customers can use it. So I think that really it's probably just the beginning for us. Build that launched the
So do you think we'll see it rolled into everything from Power Automate to PowerFX and really at a platform level? Will we see GPT-3 really becoming a way that we can, discover, once again, insights in our data, build out flows, build apps?
Well, I think so GPT-3 is to some degree, it's already built within, like it really is actually attached to kind of PowerFX to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Just seeing that experience kind of add value within Power Apps. I can totally imagine that within time, like as PowerFX becomes the consistent language across the Power Platform, given that these are models that are essentially built specifically for PowerFX, you'll start to see that goodness of these AI-powered experiences, not just by GPT-3, but by other appropriate AI models like Pros, for example, which we're leveraging for the programming by examples, which we also announced, be used and sort of spread that goodness across the Power Platform. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned Fusion Teams a few times. Can you unpack that a bit for me?
Yeah, no, I think it's something that I think there's, we have a lot of announcements that are super exciting around that space. And it's something I think we've been working on, for some time. The collaboration experiences that are getting built into the product, and not just within Power Apps, but across, of course, the whole Power Platform. And really just enabling that kind of node to pro, bringing those developers, more closely together to kind of, have your pro devs building the components, enabling, putting guardrails in place, and then really actually kind of collaborating and working closely with business, like really bringing to life that kind of idea of, working, like building with business as opposed to kind of building for business. And I think once that happens, you see much higher adoption rates. You just see, this better engagement of your users with the apps. So that's something we consistently see as a result of Fusion Teams. The customers getting more value as well, not just from the solutions that they've built from an efficiency perspective, but also the end result of the app.
Yeah. Exciting times. You also mentioned enterprise trust. Is that really extension of the work you're doing, whether it be in I can't think of the technology right now, but is it got to do with your center of excellence and the tooling around that, or is it even more beyond that?
I think it's beyond that. It is beyond that. I mean, enterprise trust to us is very much, you're thinking about your governance, you're thinking about security, it's compliance, it's that reliability piece. It's all of that coming together into kind of like the foundations of scale, if that makes sense. And I think Power Apps and Power Platform specifically, like we certainly leverage those foundations of Microsoft. I think which really, being Microsoft's low-code application development platform, really being able to scale and leverage those, like thinking about like the number of, I don't think there's any low-code vendor on the market that has as many sort of compliance certifications, for example.
Yeah.
Like we have more than, I think, 90 now specifically that apply to Power Apps. So I think that kind of forms a part of it. But then obviously also like how can we do more for the Power Platform specifically? Greater visibility, more control. Like we'll continue to invest in this space and help, particularly it sort of goes hand in hand to some degree with Fusion Teams and the scale piece.
So in the last 6 or so months, we've seen the Common Data Service, or CDS, get renamed to the Dataverse, and we're seeing Dataverse Teams. I know you've been involved, through that whole journey. What are you seeing in the market as a result of this? I know a bit of it had to do with clarifying the difference between a common data model. There was some confusion with Common Data Service, and therefore, Dataverse is out now, and of course, it's really becoming the language we're using every day when we're building apps and solutions. Are you seeing an increase, though, in the adoption of Dataverse, particularly in apps perhaps that were in the past built on SQL or something else? Are you seeing a greater growth? Are you seeing more like SharePoint folks migrating over, to the full rich functionality of the Dataverse?
Yes, I think that the definite sort of answer to that is yes. I don't have the numbers to hand. I know I was looking at this about a few weeks ago, but yes, the growth rates that we're actually seeing in Dataverse is sort of being the core platform for Power Apps. It's growing significantly. I'm not sure if we can just take credit from the name for that. But definitely seeing phenomenal growth there. I think it's outpacing like all other potential backends at the moment. And then in terms of Dataverse for Teams, yes, no, absolutely say the same thing. I think there's definitely something to be said about, being driven a little bit by remote work and the growth of Teams as well. I think there's something now like 145 million like daily users on Teams. I think that was announced in the earnings call by Satya last week. So I think like just being a part of that and being able to, offer these templates that are really easy to get going, that are built on Dataverse for Teams, and also just Dataverse for Teams, that Excel-like experience being built into the Teams experience with the embedded App Studio. You've just got this kind of intuitive app authoring experience that's sort of built for our Teams users. So we're seeing really exciting growth there as well.
Yeah. It's funny. So the next question is really about the small things that happen, and I'm sure you're close with this. But for some time, there's been a call, with the name change, etc., for a new icon to represent the Dataverse. Being that, Ryan Jones, for example, when he came out probably 2 years ago with a moniker of the Dataverse, because he was very clear this is not just a database.
Yeah.
It's servers, it's infrastructure, it's so much more. And of course, now we have the new icon. How did that come about? I've seen a few people say it looks like something you'd throw in the laundry detergent, to clean your clothes, or in your dishwasher. It looks like a dishwasher tablet of some sort. How did the design come together for that one?
I mean, we went through so many different icon iterations.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've learned is it is literally impossible to find an icon that does not remind someone of
something else.
Either a snail or a tortoise or a toilet bowl or a Tide dishwasher icon.
Yeah.
Or another icon that's really, really well known in the market. I'm really excited about the icon that we did end on.
I think looks good. I like the colors, and I think it's totally unique in our ecosystem, which is important. But tell me what you're thinking behind it.
So, I mean, I think we really wanted to, pick I think we thought a lot about colors. So we started on the color palette. It's mint green color palette.
Nice.
And I think a lot of it was thinking about like green, like being the foundation of everything that kind of things grow from to some degree.
Nice. I like it.
Which, of course, is sort of Dataverse and is the foundation for so much goodness within Power Apps. So I think that was an area that we explored as a team. And then I think from a shape perspective, we went in so many different directions. And actually, the kind of shape that we kind of ended with is kind of inspired by the shape of the universe, like the shape of a galaxy. And I actually had to look into this when we were doing it, but you do actually get very rare green galaxies made of a special type of gas. But I think it was more like the name of Dataverse we all loved. So kind of like taking inspiration of the shape of like galaxies in space, given all the directions we went in, like thinking about the scale of that, like all the different parts that kind of make it up, the uniqueness of it. That's sort of the direction that we kind of went in with the designers.
I like it. As in, when I look at it, I get the yin yang also in there in the design, and also, coming from New Zealand, we have a thing called a koru, and a koru is like an unfurling frond and indicates new life and new possibilities. So, I think it's great. It's a great representation, and I know a lot of people in telling the story of the Power Platform want to kind of tell that story around the Dataverse, because it is there's that confusion that it is just a database. It's Azure SQL sitting there, yet it's so much more. And I think to give the right iconography to it, it gives it power, gives it a story, and good work.
Cool, thanks.
Tell us about PowerFX. What's top of mind for you with PowerFX? That's another area that you're responsible for.
Yes. No, I mean, we've had a really fun year this year with PowerFX. I mean, announcing it at Ignite, I don't think we could have been, more overjoyed by, the excitement that we received from the community and from our customers, and already kind of the interest that we're seeing in the open source element is particularly exciting. And then, as I mentioned, the extension of PowerFX into, not only like model-driven commanding, which I think really brings together a really lovely story from, on top of the converged app progress that we talked about at MBAS. But, the first time that we are sort of bringing PowerFX into Dataverse calculated columns, bringing that Excel-like kind of intuitive, simplified experience. You're taking a a process that is to some degree, time consuming, like complex formulas, pop-ups, following a workflow, you're not really looking at this like declarative kind of data experience, and really kind of bringing in that kind of like Excel-like formula-driven experience of Power FX. I think I'm very excited about, the goodness that we are going to see. And I think the ease of use that is going to bring to our customers, particularly as Dataverse is growing so quickly. I'm really excited about it.
So I hear, third parties are starting to adopt it and use it in their technology as well. Is it, do you think, because, ultimately Excel is so, prevalent in organizations and people understand that kind of formula complex of Excel, and now you're bringing it and making it available at all, pretty much all touch points across the BizApp suite of products. Do you think that's partly driving it? And also my follow-on question from that is what feedback are you getting from folks now that it's out in market?
I think, to answer your first question, I think it's a huge driver for it. I think, we have hundreds of millions of, folks around the world who are familiar with the language. There is much lower sort of learning curve to it. So I think that is one element. Of course, with like GPT-3, even having like, natural language to code and code to natural language, like that learning curve for the formula becomes even lower. So I think that familiarity piece is huge. So I definitely think that has a lot to do with it. I also think that Power FX, apart from that, is also unique, like having a low-code textual, computer language that is open source, like to some degree. I'm obviously biased, given it's like one of my babies, but like, that's a pretty exciting thing. That's, it's first of its kind to some degree. Yeah. So I think that is really exciting. So, the take up that we have seen, like out, with third parties that we're starting to see, that is very exciting. I've also forgotten what your second question was, to be honest.
No, that was, what's the feedback you're getting from folks that are starting to adopt it?
Well, so I think we are starting to see that, absolutely, like working with other organizations. I actually saw a really cool demo this week of a third party had built with PowerFX. So yes, we're seeing some really cool stuff. And also what's really cool is really quickly, like the time that it's taken as well, which I think is also again down to the language and low code. But I think it's exciting times ahead.
So good, so good. What resources do you recommend that people go out and check if they want to, get up to speed on Power FX, they want to see, where the Dataverse is going and, the latest things around GPT-3, etc. Where do you recommend they go learn, read up on that type of thing?
That's a great question. I think for me, I'd probably say first and foremost, like a lot of like getting the latest and greatest in the space, like you're probably going to find a really cool blog on the Power Apps or the Power Platform blog home site. That's often a place that I go when I'm sharing resources with folks. I mean, I think if you want a deeper dive, like we always make sure that we kind of land the end-to-end story on, Microsoft Docs, and our product group, is great at keeping that completely up to date. So, if you're ever looking for a deeper dive. And then I know like Sora Pant has, the Power Platform Learning Resources blog, which is probably the most comprehensive set of sort of end-to-end learning resources that we've ever published. So I always recommend that folks go there. And then YouTube, lastly, I think, YouTube for us is really growing as a space for folks to kind of learn and, not just obviously Microsoft content, but there's a lot of like, Mark, you are like a fantastic sort of, leader in the community. And I think the videos that we have from folks, the ones I've seen on Power FX, they've been sort of, community created and shared, like they're fabulous.
I love it. I love it.
People should. We definitely need folks to watching them.
Great. We'll make sure we get those links in the show notes. Before I let you go, who do you recommend as a guest for a future show?
So I think we talked quite a bit today about Power FX, and it is an area I'm particularly excited about. And I think that there is sort of a special story there when you think about languages and the history of language and like also the future of open source languages. So I think I would recommend that you speak to Greg Lindhorst, who is a Microsoft program manager who is sort of the expert on PowerFX, and he would be a great person to kind of go a bit deeper with, talk about the history, talk about the future. So he would be
I like it.
innovation.
Sounds awesome. I always like to end these shows with a few random questions
Okay.
about life, about anything really. They're random. So are you ready for yours?
Okay.
They're quick fire. Just say pass if nothing springs to mind. But first off, would you rather end the life of one human being or 100 puppies and kittens?
Oh gosh, puppies and kittens probably, but it would be so sad.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on a first date?
Oh my word. Pass. Nothing's coming to mind, but there's probably so many.
What are you most worried about the next generation?
Oh, social media. I just worry that they live their lives kind of not processing it properly themselves, but like through other people's eyes.
True. What do the first 30 minutes of your typical day look like?
Ooh, waking up and having a cup of tea. I have not lost my British sensibility.
Wow, I was going to say, that's very British of you.
And I must say, like, I'm working with a lot of the American friends here to bring up their tea making and drinking abilities. Americans don't do it enough.
Mm-hmm. If you could pick up one skill instantly, what would it be?
Probably singing.
Interesting. Wow. And finally, you're at a cafe. What type of drink do you order?
Ooh, maybe like a chai tea.
Is there a difference between a chai tea and a chai latte?
I think so.
Just one's got milk, one's got water, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're probably like Americanizing actually like chai, I guess, because chai in India is just tea. But I think chai tea could be more like when it's boiled with water, and then a chai latte would be with milk. And here you can even have a dirty chai latte where they add espresso to it.
Wow. Okay, that is different. Haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
Bryony, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Applications MVP Mark Smith, also known as the NZ365 guy. Hopefully you learn a lot from today's episode, that you go out, touch these tools, get used to them, learn them, and apply them in the apps that you are building. Full show notes, as I say, for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/316. Stay safe out there and see you next time.